then I'm going to get going because we've got two different segments to our speakers today, because we invited our partners, our charitable partners from the foundation. Becky Amble had to be out of town today. Becky is the chair of our foundation committee, and so she would have liked to have been here. But we like to bring in the people that we have awarded some funds to from our Rotary Foundation to hear more about your organization and what your request was. And so we're going to start with Jane Fenton and Telly Mamayek speaking for Normandale, and I'm just going to give you a little information about both of them. Jane oversees the foundation, which raises funds for scholarships, programs, departments, emergency grants for students, and many other areas of the college. She had served as the Normandale Foundation Associate Executive Director prior to this position, leading the foundation through a period of time where the campus covered technology resources, energy grants, and scholarship funds were crucial in keeping the college's efforts to keeping students on track to persist and succeed and graduate during the pandemic. The foundation has focused on ending student hunger, developing a mentor program for Normandale students, raising funds for Normandale's Certified program, which recruits and supports Black, African American, and African men into elementary and second education pathways, the Math and Science Academy, and numerous things, obviously. And she can give the updates on the Normandale Foundation at this time when they come up. Prior to being named the Associate Executive Director, she had been the Director of Development and Major Gifts Office at the Foundation. She has more than 20 years of experience in nonprofit leadership, donor development, fundraising experience. Before joining Normandale, Fenton was a community relations specialist at Hospice Advantage and a director of community relations at Laura Baker Services Association, and was a former Rotarian. And she came back into Rotary when she came back to Bloomington. So we're excited about that. Telly Mamayek is, as Jane said, the Vice President of Advancement. She's been there just a short period of time. She is a storyteller and has been for as long as she can remember. She's fortunate to have made it part of her career. Her earlier work was as a broadcast journalist to my current role as a VP of Advancement at Normandale. She's provided vital information to targeted audience while enhancing organizational credibility, brand recognition, and reputation. And she's a champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Through strategic communications planning and cross-functional collaboration, she's led many teams to successful outcomes in the public and private and nonprofit sectors, and her achievements include award-winning outreach campaigns, impact media events, and record-breaking fundraisers. She can tell us a little bit more about herself, but it kept haunting me. I thought, why do I know her? And so I went into LinkedIn, and it finally connected that she used to be in the news department at WCCO Radio, and maybe some of you have heard her name through that radio station. But I would like to invite the two of them up, and as they come up, I am also going to hand them a check from our Rotary Foundation, and they will tell us a little bit more about the foundation and also what this check will go for. So thanks on behalf of everybody in our club to be able to award this to Jane and Telly.
Thank you so much.
We don't have a giant check.
All right. I'm going to let Telly go first.
Okay.
Just wonderful. Thank you so much for your generous support. We couldn't do it without the community, the broader community, you and the others who support Normandale, so thank you so much. As I briefly explained earlier, I've just joined the Normandale family, and my title is Vice President of Advancement, and you probably are wondering, what is that? And so we're still working on the elevator speech, but essentially it's advancing the mission of Normandale to its stakeholders. And so that is generous donors like yourselves, community leaders like yourselves, of course, legislators at the Capitol, because a large part of our funding also comes from the state budget, but also our students, a critical audience of ours. It's all about the students, right, and the faculty who help them advance their education. So we do advancement through many things, many tools. So public relations, which is really my bread and butter, media relations, that's my background, but also marketing through advertising and our website and other channels of communication. And then, of course, we have a grants program that funds special projects, which you'll hear about today, and then, of course, the foundation. So Jane is our executive director of the Normandale Foundation. That is now a separate position, and she is leading that wonderful team. We have 4 people on that team that are working to collect much needed support for the work that we do at Normandale. And so I'm really pleased to be working with Jane. And my focus is really on the outreach and getting the word out and supporting my team and helping make that happen. So I'm really, really happy to be here. So the mission, so next slide, of Normandale is to cultivate a welcoming college community. And I have to tell you, mission accomplished. When I interviewed for the position and every day that I've been in the building since, it has been such a welcoming presence and an opportunity to meet people. They're always just constantly asking, how are you today? And smiles. And it just is really a warm place to be, and everybody just feels good to be there. So it's really doing a great job with that. The next mission, to foster every student's talents, meeting students where they are on their journey, and really fostering that knowledge that they're gaining and the special talents that they have to help nurture that and help them advance along on their path. And then thirdly, to build an equitable world. I'm really excited to be at a place that really builds on the wonderful fabric that our students are weaving for us. They come from all countries, all walks of life, and it's so inspiring to meet them all and to talk to them about where they're at and where they're going. And we as a staff and the faculty are on a very planned and thoughtful journey through our own cultivating our cultural competency and our DEI work. We're all going through specialized programming, and I'm excited. My team just went through the IDI training, and I'm going to be doing that in the fall. And it's really intentional, that walk that Normandale is making, because our student body is very diverse and it's very exciting, and we want to support them every step of the way and be the best that we can at our jobs. And then Normandale's vision, limitless human potential realized. And a vision is aspirational, right? It's that thing that maybe you'll never quite get there, but boy, we're going to try, and hopefully we do. We want to realize the human potential of every person who is in that building pursuing a degree. And it's exciting to be there. So I hope you can feel it, because I feel it. So the 3 core values, and you'll see this if you follow us on social media, we use this a lot, a hashtag called caring, curiosity, and commitment. And what it is, it reflects the 3 core values of the college. And caring is really caring about the human beings that we interact with every day, and caring about their needs and how they're going to go on after they're done with Normandale. But while they're there, we're going to care for them and set them up the best that we know how. Curiosity, that's really where that education sits in there. The curiosity that people have to learn, as well as our curiosity about what they need to help them. So it's really a two-way street. And then commitment, really walking the walk and walking the talk, being committed in the work that we do and committed to our students. It's really a commitment that we have, and then our students are also committed to their success. And so that caring, curiosity, commitment is really kind of a thread through everything that we do. A few quick facts about us. So we're part of the Minnesota State System of Colleges and Universities. In all, it has 43 schools across the state. Normandale is the largest two-year college. We have approximately 15,000 students that are taking classes through Normandale. So it's a very vibrant and busy place. We have a very diverse student body. As I said earlier, 47% of our students are students of color. And when you consider factors in addition to that, such as low income and first generation students, more than 75% of degree-seeking undergraduates come from underrepresented communities. And that is super inspiring. We just had a scholars and donors celebration on Thursday of was it last Thursday? Or we the weeks are blending together, so pardon me on the dates. Because it's been a flurry of activity at the end of the school year, if you can imagine, that there's all sorts of celebrations and events. And so that was really an inspiring event to be at. The scholars who received scholarship funds, the donors who generously gave to support their studies, all under the same roof in this celebration to be recognized. And just to hear the stories of the students and how grateful they are to have this opportunity to fulfill their wishes for higher education is just really, it was very cool. So a significant portion of our students are taking PSEO classes at Normandale through their high school, so advancing their college education before they even graduate from high school. So about 3,000 of the 15,000 are PSEO students. And we have more than 70 degrees and certificates at Normandale, so there's a lot going on there. Now we're going to just take a quick little deep dive into each of the three core values. So a demonstration of the caring that we have under our roof is the Student Resource Center, which connects the students to the resources in the community that they need, helping meet their basic needs. And so what's really exciting about this is we just recently were awarded a grant from the U.S. Department of Education, and it's almost $1 million grant that's going to fund a couple of workers at the Student Resource Center to help meet basic needs. And so we're talking about food, we're talking about housing, things like this, transportation, so that we can ensure that the students can be the best secure as they can be in their basic needs so that they can learn. We, of course, have the campus cupboard, which is a part of the resources that we offer to our students so that they, we address the whole student. And that is an exciting resource where there's all types of food that's available, and it's available to all students, no questions asked. And also personal hygiene items as well are provided free of charge to the students through the campus cupboard. Curiosity, as I said, that's that really two-way street of students being curious, we being curious about them, and so there's all sorts of clubs and organizations for students to join, and they have all kinds of activities throughout the year, which is really fun to go visit, take a break from your computer and go check it out and meet some students in their different areas of interest. Some special initiatives that support the learning of underrepresented and marginalized people is Certify. So you heard a little bit about that. That's a really exciting program that I think is going to double in size next year, supporting Black, African American, African men getting into the teaching field. And that's going to pay dividends down the road because the students who then are their students are going to see themselves in their teacher and then making it possible for them to also pursue that as well as a career. Sped Up is a similar program that is supportive of people going into special education teaching. And that's a very exciting program as well that is in its first couple of years at Normandale. You can learn 6 world languages at Normandale: Chinese, French, German, Japanese, Somali, and Spanish. And there are many options for students to take classes online, hybrid, or in person. And as you can imagine, the pandemic really upended things. So before 2020, the majority was in person. Then it was all, after that, and most immediately all either online and just a little bit of hybrid. We're getting back there, getting back to in person, but it's still lopsided. So about 50% of our students are taking classes online versus being in person. But the halls are busier, and it's much more a vibrant place. And so we're in that process of, right-sizing it again. And we'll see where we end up. We don't know, what the end result is going to be, because people really do like that convenience of having, that opportunity to do the online, as you've all seen in your businesses, that people like online options, but not everybody can learn online. So we will always at least have some portion that's in person. And finally, commitment. So this is where we hand it over to Jane. So this is where groups like the Rotary come in, who help us live out our mission. The Normandale Foundation, under Jane's leadership, has provided more than $774,000 in scholarships and support for programs and projects. And the Academy of Math and Science, which your generous grant supports, the students there each receive a $1,000 scholarship, and they meet monthly as a cohort, so they've got that peer support, and then they each have an advisor that they meet with bi-monthly. So there's a lot of support that goes into that, and thank you for making that happen. So Jane, tell us a little bit more.
Thanks, Telly. Thank you. Okay, you guys remember Andrea Specht? So Andrea was me and her combined. That's why Andrea's no longer with us. I'm just kidding. No, it was a lot to ask. So we're both really excited about the new model going forward, that the college gets its own full-time VP and the foundation gets its own full-time ED. So anyhow, the Academy of Math and Science. You guys, if you're new to Rotary, if you're new today, I will just tell you that this club has a long history with Normandale in general and is one of the original funders of this program. Don Stiles, I look to you. Were you one of the people that helped invent this, right? Because he was on the board. How many fingers does Don Stiles have in the pie of Bloomington? A lot, and especially at Normandale, quite a lot. So we're always very grateful for that. But this club and all your support has been with us from the beginning, and we're really grateful. So it's going strong. I think when I first got here, I've been here almost 7 years, I looked at the coordinators, I said, hey, can we raise it from 50 students to 75? Can you handle that many more? And they're like, okay. So we're up to about 70. Right now it's 73. So the number varies a little bit as students, sometimes students drop out, they come back later. You can see our statistics. The Academy of Math and Science focuses on underrepresented populations in science, technology, engineering, and math. So that's going to be women, people of color. Pell eligibility is just a way higher ed describes low-income people. So if your income is a certain level or below, you qualify for Pell grants from the federal government. And but interestingly, at Normandale, of course, we have a lot of Pell eligibility, but then there's a layer of students on top of that. And that is one of my personal goals, is to figure out with our scholarship program in general, not this one including, but there's people, I'll never forget, I had a student worker in my office, and she had her own apartment, she lived with her boyfriend, they both contributed to the rent. She was a full-time Normandale student, she was a member of the Academy of Math and Science, she wanted to be a nurse, and her mom got a raise at work. And suddenly, her eligibility for her Pell Grant disappeared. And suddenly, her whole financial life changed. And she came to me and said, can I take a break and go down to Veep, used to bring their mobile food pantry. I know this club also supports Veep. And I'm like, of course you can go to the Veep food van. And it just made me realize that for some of our students, there's that layer, you have Pell eligibility, and then you have a layer up here who don't quite qualify, but who are in a lot of financial need. So I'm probably not telling you anything new, but they don't have a name. And they're included in the low income, but it's sometimes hard to ask those questions. And Pell eligibility is one of the one of the trademarks, one of the things we use, but I'm as Normandale goes deeper into equity work, I'm trying to figure out a different way to define that layer that's right over that. Pell eligibility. First generation, have you been to college? You haven't been to college, but did your parents go? Makes a huge difference. Again, I'm probably speaking to the choir, but if you think back in your own life, the difference between people whose parents went to college, and even if one parent has been to college, makes a big difference in terms of how you approach the whole process and how ready you are. So Normandale has adopted a student-ready mentality. We've been working on that for about 3 years. Instead of saying, well, they don't have all the skills they need. How are we expected to educate them? What we're saying is, okay, wait, it's our job to be ready for them however they walk in the door. And when you flip it like that, it makes a tremendous difference in staff outlook and in outcomes. But then you have to build in resources in order for it to be successful. So if you haven't been to Normandale, and I know, Debbie, we're supposed to do a vocational visit, right? And have a meeting at Normandale. So if you come, I'll give you the tour of our new remodeling that was actually remodeled based on a different kind of service delivery. A service delivery that almost doubled the amount of advisors we have in order to become student ready. And so we actually designed the building to reflect that reality. So you can just walk in, literally, like you're going to the Apple store to get an iPhone, and you get assigned to someone who will walk you through the entire process. If you walk in and you've never been to college and you have no idea, there is an actual traditional admissions office. But if you're a currently registered student, you have any issues at all, we've got your concierge waiting for you. So it used to be they had to go to different windows to do everything. It was very off-putting, a lot of obstacles. Do I have another slide? I think I do. Thank you. This is a quote from this year's speaker. Several of you were there. Thank you for coming. I've experienced a few nonprofit things. I'm on a board of a nonprofit, and we had an event, and I could not believe how many people showed up. I could not believe how many people showed up for this, so thank you to everyone from this club that was there. But this is Jasmine Devora, our speaker, from this year's Scholar and Donors event, which Telly mentioned. And she's in AMS, right? And she is a undocumented. Her parents came here, and she was brought as a child. So that's a special category of what we call residence, but not citizenship. A lot of times the people we hear about a lot are coming from Mexico, but it can be from any country. And when you're that status, it's every 2 years. You don't know if your resident status is going to be renewed or not. So it's a very stressful, challenging way to live. Her parents live in Iowa. She drives 2 3/4 hours on Friday and Monday to get back and forth because she has to translate for her parents because her mom is a type 1 diabetic. They have no health insurance because you can't get it when you're undocumented. And it's anyway, just a lot of challenges. And what I like about her, and I didn't know, when I ask students to speak, I do not know. I just take the recommendation from their advisors. They say, this student's great, but I don't get any details until I listen to the first draft of their speech. And she worked in politics for 3 years. She worked in politics during the pandemic and got COVID a lot. But it was a job, and it was a good job, and she learned a lot about her country. And it motivated her. She now wants to be a doctor because she did eventually lose her job. She was like a door-to-door canvasser person. Did a lot of organizing. And so she came to Normandale because it was the most diverse community college she could find. And it's been great. So just know that you are part of this young woman's success. It's actually hopefully inspiring to you. It's a big deal. And the thing is, sometimes donors will say to me, I give you a lot of money. I kind of expect that you're solving some problems. When's this problem going to be done? Right? Jasmine's like, I hear you. And what I say to people is, man, it would be great. But how I look at it is we have the same issues that walk in the door every August, and you're helping us solve those problems and meet those issues and help people walk out onto the graduation stage, which, by the way, is happening next Monday at Orchestra Hall. And we just get better at meeting that need. So be happy about that. If we're not solving it, we're at least getting better at figuring it out. I'm looking at Jasmine, okay. my friend at Oasis for Youth. We're kind of in the same spot. Would you mind just going back 2 slides? I wanted to point out one thing. Okay, another one. Some of the things we're hearing from organizations, and I'm looking at the 3rd bullet about languages, and I'll be done, is that businesses want STEM students because they have all the skills, but they also want them to be well-rounded and culturally aware. And ideally, if you can't speak those languages, be familiar with the cultures behind them and have at least a passing familiarity with the world around us, right? That's a mild way to put it. So that's an emerging area in terms of, and I'm using languages because a lot of our academic travel programs focus on language acquisition. And it's a new field. Actually, Normandale has been in the business of academic travel since it started 55 years ago. We actually, which, for a community college might be surprising, we consider it very important. I can't find tons of donors that support it, but it is one of my goals, is to look for large donors, because the difference it makes, if you think the Academy of Math and Science is making a difference, and it's making a huge difference, when you add on a $500 to $1,000 stipend to help you do some academic travel. I went with students to New York last summer, and it was an amazing trip. It was amazing to talk to them, get to know them, and see the difference that it made. Some have never left their home. So you know how important that is. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to go. I don't know who my next person is. So thank you, Rotary. You gave us $5,000. Thank you.
It's always interesting listening to our charitable partners, and it's the fun of being on the foundation board to read these applications, but how interconnected Bloomington is as a city through our educational entities and through our nonprofits. And the next check I'm going to present is to Jasmine Green. And Jasmine walked in the room and knew Don Stiles because there's a history in the foundation with the Stiles family. Yes. And with their connection with Normandale, so very closely related. Jasmine is the director of programs. She oversees Oasis's agency drop-in center and outreach response programs. She's the most tenured employee at Oasis, having been with Oasis since 2014, is their lead case manager. Jasmine has an extensive history working with youth, starting her career as an outreach worker with District 202 Streetworks, is that right? And going to work at Lutheran Social Services, Salvation Army, and Face to Face. She quickly became a leader in the outreach community, using her expertise and connections to create the Guide to the Streets for youth and young adults. Jasmine is a fierce advocate for youth, bringing 15 years of direct service work to her leadership position. She's part of several community efforts that focus on the importance of racial equity and how inequalities create youth homelessness in Minnesota. She's also an amazing teacher, and she continues to share her knowledge and skill with the youth-serving community as a trainer and advisor at Oasis and in the community. When not working, she spends her time with her son, Marion, who's her world, and with her family, because she's the oldest of 7. So with that, I'd like to present a check to Oasis for Youth for $2,000. And we're just so pleased to have you here and be able to speak to us more about Oasis.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for allowing me to be here today, and also for the generous donation. We appreciate it so much. And yes, I was going to shout out a few familiar faces in the room, so thank you for that. And it's nice to, know folks. So as mentioned, I'm Jasmine Green. I'm the director of drop-in program and also our mobile outreach. It's a fairly new position. I moved into the director role as of January, so still trying to figure it all out. And some of you may know who was our executive director, Nicole Mills, who has left at the beginning of April. So lots of transitions, lots of figuring things out. But anywho, at Oasis, our goal is really to be a trusted resource for young people so that they can thrive in their own communities. We focus in the areas of Richfield, Bloomington, and Edina. And is this the cue to say? I have a sort of a longer PowerPoint, so I'll try to squeeze things in. Pictured here actually is the lovely founders, Miss Leslie Stiles, wife of Don Stiles, is also in this picture. But these wonderful women came together and really saw the need to provide a safe resource for young people in the community in which we serve. They came from different congregations, different backgrounds, but honestly, these folks were amazing, and also their spouses, who probably allowed them a lot of time and financial dollars to really get the agency up and going. Oasis opened in 2010. Let's just see. And then we are located, our flagship drop-in center is located in the basement of Oak Grove Presbyterian Church, which continues to be a really key partner. We're there kind of rent-free, utility-free, so we love Oak Grove. If you don't know. Okay, cute. All right, so as mentioned, we opened in July of 2010. We've seen a steady increase in all the things from the young people we serve, the programs that we're offering, and the utilization of the resource center. Word of mouth continues to be pretty big for us, whether that's young people that get support, school stakeholders, community stakeholders, but again, the word of mouth is huge. In 2015, we hired our first executive director, so it was about a year and a half after I started. So actually when I started, it was like founders, board, volunteers, and lots of good times. And then we got executive director that brought a little more order to the space. But we've transitioned from an all-volunteer kind of organization to the ability to have 15 paid staff. And then again, increased programming, services, youth engagement opportunities. And we also feel like we have a deeper understanding of what young people need in our community. Pictured here is sort of a shift, because as you can see, Nicole is still in the middle. But anyway, the reason why we include this in PowerPoints is just to really highlight that young people really are at the top. Young people are a part of all things that happen at Oasis. And so, again, it's really just to kind of show the visual on how young people are really the experts in our programming and all that we offer. So we do believe that young people with lived experience are the experts of their own journeys, and we really get to ride alongside them and meet them where they're at in those journeys. We believe that young people should have input on all the things, so they're a part of hiring processes, donor meetings, even services that are provided. So for instance, Bloomington Public Health wants to come and do a group. We'll have to channel those things through young people and make sure it's a really good fit. And nobody's hired at Oasis without young people's approval. We have a youth advisory board and an internship program that has also been really vital in development and where we plan to go. And then they're the folks who are planning all the community events, the parties, the gatherings, all the fun stuff actually young people get to plan. All right, so people often ask, what does the case manager do? What do you all do? What does that look like? And really it's different. It's unique for every young person we work with. It's really around assessing their goals, their strengths, their challenges, and then whatever they kind of identify. So here's a list of what that can include. So stabilizing housing, which can be on a spectrum, whether that's looking for emergency housing, long-term solutions. Sometimes that can include, bringing families together or kind of looking at what needs are there to create a safe home environment. So it's really on that spectrum. And often people think that we only work with folks who are experiencing homelessness. That is not the case. It often includes young people who are maybe preparing to be 18 and want to think about what it looks like to be independent, or families that need support. So just want to put that out there, that is a myth that I think people often believe. Finding and maintaining employment is also kind of done on a spectrum, from literally helping somebody get a job to resume, cover letters, assessing their skills, what they're great at. So that also can be done on that spectrum. Finishing and continuing education is another sort of on a spectrum. Anything from, helping assess what credits are needed, to fast for letters, to helping people do independent status letters if they're looking to do some post-secondary or some college. So lots of stuff around education, providing those tangible things, school supplies, literally almost anything. Addressing physical and mental health needs. Applying for benefits, I think, is probably something we do on the daily, as well as helping young people apply for those vital documents like birth certificates, social security cards. Those are done, I want to say we do at least maybe 2 or 3 a week as a norm. And then a lot of addressing and accessing basic needs, hygiene supplies, food, all of those things. Connecting to community resources is also really important. And again, the last bullet is like almost anything a young person identifies. I've done, help people get connected to legal support. I've bought tires. You name it. You ask me and I'll say, yep, we've probably done it. Or we know someone that does. So, sweet. All right, and so it's a little bit more about what we do. First steps, we do a lot of transportation support. As you know, it's a bit challenging for transportation via bus for young folks, so we do a lot of rides to resources and have relied, I'll say this now because it comes up a lot, prior to the pandemic, we did a lot of utilizing volunteers for those rides to resources as well. But we're giving out bus passes, bus tokens, emergency gas cards, all of those things on a consistent basis. Food obviously also is really important, so we have a relationship with Veep, which allows us to access those resources barrier-free, no questions asked. We're able to go there twice a week and bring young people there. And then there's always food at drop-in. People often ask, what does that look like? Well, it's usually not the most nutritious things when it's youth-led, so there's a lot of pizza rolls and, all the things. But anyway, food is essential. There's always food at our drop-in center. When we're able, we do a lot of cooking together with young people too, and learning those life skills. And then we have a small food pantry there on site for folks that need to take things. And then again, a lot of basic needs stuff. So that's household supplies. We do a ton of supporting young people who are maybe getting ready to start a new job, needing uniforms, or even preparing for an interview. And then folks who are moving into their new place, maybe needing, those initial pots and pans and household goods. And then do a lot of stuff with young people via computer/internet, depending on what that is that they need. Okay, so addressing housing, which is obviously a big, big bubble. We do try to prevent homelessness wherever we can. So that includes a lot of, again, doing some connecting of folks, their support networks. Sometimes that's looking at emergency shelter. We do have support to be able to do move-in support, so eviction prevention, deposits, application fees, that sort of thing we're able to do. That exploring youth support networks is sometimes means if we're working with a student who can maybe stay at a friend's for the weekend, we'll sometimes maybe provide a Cub food gift card for the family that's allowing them to stay as we kind of figure stuff out. A lot of looking at shelter, which I don't know if folks know, but there are not a ton of youth shelter beds in the state of Minnesota. In fact, there are 91 youth shelter beds are allocated to young people here in the entire Minnesota. So obviously that means that's not always an option. So having to get creative. We do a lot of referring to both transitional living program, which typically is 18 months to 2 years long, and then a lot of long-term supportive housing, which is the permanent supportive, which can often be really hard to get into because people don't usually move out of permanent supportive housing. And then we have some housing options at Oasis as well. We have a scattered site housing program where we're able to do a rent subsidy for 2 years, getting them on their feet, and then gradually having the young person kind of pay the majority. And then we also have a very new program. It's our first federal funding, actually. It's the Foster Youth Initiative, but that program is really focused on young people who have had foster care experience. And with that program, we're able to house 25 young people. Right now, we got that, I think in October, we have 11 people who are kind of going through the motions. So that's honestly a huge deal. All right, so where are we? Because we're all over the place. So I mentioned the drop-in center, which is located again in Oak Grove Presbyterian Church. Flagship, that's where everything started. That's our roots, that's our home. So typically you can find most of us there. That, again, is where young people can come shower, do laundry. We have a clothing closet, computers, case managers. It's honestly just a safe spot, too. A lot of young people will come and play video games and eat food and, be in groups and just be in community with their peers. That is 2 to 5. Monday through Friday. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we've extended the summer hours to be open at noon. We'll often have young people there as early as 9, just because it's a little bit challenging to wash a bunch of clothes with a couple hours notice. So that is our drop-in center. And that's also a good spot where young people can get some different services offered. So one of the things we know is that young people from our community won't often go to Minneapolis or St. Paul to get some of those community resources. So we're really big on bringing resources to our young people. So on any given day, there's different folks around. So for instance, have the calendar, but every Thursday, Youth Law Project is there providing free legal support for young people. Every Tuesday, Bloomington Public Health is there providing support. So again, we're really big on bringing those resources to the drop-in center, and honestly, all of those ideas are really generated from young people. So we've had Bailey the therapy dog show up. But again, we're really big on consistency and bringing those resources to our young people. And then we have a office inside of the Mall of America, which is kind of our newer program. We've been there since 2016, and it's one of the first of its kind in the nation. When we started it, we got a lot of phone calls from different states, like, what did you do? How'd you do this? And really for us, it was a no-brainer. A lot of times young people's first jobs are gonna be in retail, and we have one of the biggest retail places here in Bloomington. So it made a lot of sense for us to go over there. Young people who are working with Oasis are maintaining their jobs on an average of 22.8 months in comparison to those that aren't. And the goal there is to really assess and do all the things we do at our drop-in and other programs so that young people can show up to work. So really addressing housing, school, whatever it is that they may need, and it's also providing a safe spot for breaks and lunches, and there's tokens and all the things they may need while at work as well. And then I mentioned our scattered site housing program. So again, those are really in variety of different apartments that people are staying in, and we work really hard to maintain really good relationships with those landlords to be able to just have a network of support. And then we are in Bloomington, Richfield, and Edina schools. That is, I think we're in 9 schools throughout the week. So that includes our primary schools, alternative schools, and then, of course, Normandale Community College is listed there. Prior to the pandemic, we had a weekly presence at Normandale as well, and really supported the resource center that they have embedded there. And actually, when it was started, a lot of our outreach worker and I believe Paige did a lot of connecting on what kind of resources would be really good to have there, and just how we can be good stewards and really support young people getting access to that resource space as well. And then we're doing lots of community outreach, so we're a part of the Streetworks Collaborative. The Streetworks Collaborative is about 13 different agencies across the Twin Cities that teams up to do street-based outreach. So they're anywhere from parks and recs to mall transit, bus stops, just wherever young people can be found, to really bring those resources and be a bridge for young people that maybe need to access long-term support. And so that, again, puts us in lots of different spots, and it allows for us to have lots of different partners. So I don't know if folks are familiar with the Bridge for Youth or some other long-time agencies. We get to partner with them on a regular basis to do this work. All right, so some demographics. In 2020, we served 361 young people. 184 of those were new. We had lots of virtual visits, especially because this was the heat of the pandemic. But just over 3,000 visits, 713 meals were distributed, lots of miles driven by case managers, and we did a lot of rent subsidies as well. And then some more sort of demographics. 86% were youth of color, 24% identify as LGBTQ, 28% were parenting or pregnant. I think this next one is big because a lot of times folks will say, well, why won't they just get a job, or why don't they go to school? Nearly 50% of the folks that we work with are maintaining work in school. And then 34% were found to be staying with a family, or 34% were with staying in a place not meant for human habitation. So a lot of folks that we work with are folks that are riding the train a lot or all night, or finding really creative spots to stay. 30% were staying with family or friends. So some more demographics, I won't read verbatim, but as you can see in 2021, we had 391 young people, 274 were new. But the demographics in terms of who were served were pretty similar. You also see too, there was a dent in the young people who visited the drop-in center, but that was also during the pandemic when we had to kind of operate by appointment only. But you can see the big climb here on the youth contacts that were made via outreach. So at that year, we were doing a lot of going to young people as much as we could. All right, and I won't read this, you just gotta click, click, click. I won't read this one verbatim as well, but there's a list of why young people may be experiencing homelessness. I think many of them are pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, I'll keep going just for time. Another thing I like to point out when I do these community engagement presentations is just the experience in Minnesota in full. So there are two really important counts that happen in the state of Minnesota to really identify folks experiencing homelessness. One is done by Wilder and one is done, it's called the PIT count. But anyway, they really both suck, honestly, because they're done in winter months. And my point is this number really isn't reflective of what we see, just because, again, it's happening for folks who are literally found outside, not in the shelter systems, not in those housing programs. And it kind of got a little messed up just because they didn't do the count every 3 years as normal with the pandemic. But in 2018, there were just over 19,000 Minnesotans experiencing homelessness on any given night. Now, what do you think that is for young people? There's an estimated 6,000 young people experiencing homelessness in our state on any given night. Again, this is not truly reflective of who's being identified. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's a survey that's done with those things without incentive, and it's usually like a 5-page survey. So again, if you walk up to somebody on the bus stop and say, hey, will you do this survey? I got nothing to give you. A lot of times they walk away. So again, this is just not a reflective number. What we also see is that the homeless community can be really close-knit, so there's a lot of like what you or I might see as overtaking, and so I do this training with volunteers, and I often tell them, don't worry about if you see them taking lots. Some of that is really about survival. And then you'll also see them tend away from systems that or institutions that are designed to help because they can sometimes further oppress. There's a lot of intrusiveness that happens, a lot of questions, your social security, your this, your that young people will tend to shy away from certain resources. And then what this looks like, so there's limited resources, not enough of all these things. Long wait times for services. As mentioned, before I came to Oasis, I've worked in a few other organizations. And one which I won't name, but I think what was really hard was you'd have 10 young people waiting to meet with you within, a 2 hour. So one of the things I'm really proud of about at Oasis is the staff-to-youth ratio really allows us to do quality work with young people. We're able to sit down and really address that need right away versus some of our partners who are more so in like Minneapolis and St. Paul. Vulnerabilities, people looking to exploit young people. We see that all the time where there's some light bill that was in someone's name, or they're maybe getting, SNAP benefits, but their family is sort of taking advantage of them. So we see these things all the time. Constantly in transition, constantly being triggered. Marginalized, and then developmental issues. And for our younger folks, so we do work with young people 16, 17 that are minors, they have fewer legal means to gain housing and employment. So sometimes it's a lot trickier for those minor young people that we serve. And then always in survival mode. All right, so I'd like to pitch how you can help or how you might volunteer with us. Meals for drop-in are great. I cannot describe how important a crock pot of like chili is important to our young people who don't have hot meals every day. Greeter at the drop-in center, hosting birthday parties. We really are big on celebrating young people's big and small accomplishments and birthdays. Project volunteers, donation drives, all of these different opportunities. And then there's lots of committees, which I know people love. And then I also included just how do you get in touch with us if need be. And I think wanting to just really quickly speak to the support you all gave us today. for this $2,000. So one of the things that has been really important for us right now, especially with our school partners, is really addressing transportation or lack of transportation support. We do work with the liaisons to really help young people who may be eligible for like the homeless and highly mobile funds, but sometimes it takes a few weeks. And so often we are like the means of transportation for students for 2-3 weeks, sometimes a month. So we're providing Uber gift cards for maybe entire families for a month until they're able to get transportation locked in. So one of the things that we were hoping to use this funding for was really to secure more transportation funds to be available during those gaps and when those processes need to happen. It's ridiculous, but it sometimes takes, again, a few weeks to get transportation set up for folks who are experiencing homelessness or in transition. So thank you again so much for your donation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And with that, her contact information is on the screen. And thank you all. We'll see you next week for a club assembly here at Bloomington Rotary. Thanks, everybody.